Welcome back to the second part of my talk. On the 26th of October 1981, Charmouth witnessed yet another dramatic street incident when a runaway lorry crashed into three parked cars outside Dampier's, now nicer. The force of the impact shunted the vehicles across the road, scattering them in different directions. One car bore the brunt of the collision, sustaining severe damage to both front and rear ends. The crash added to a growing list of vehicular mishaps in the village's history. A close-up from October 1981 reveals the dramatic aftermath of a runaway lorry crash outside Dampier's, now nicer, with several cars crushed and scattered across the street. In the background stands the coach and horses. One vehicle was partially mangled, damaged at both ends, underscoring the force of the impact and the narrow escape from greater harm. 1968 view down the street, offering a rare glimpse into Charmouth, where Stanley House stands prominently on the left. At the time, it served as both the guest house and the Charmouth Gift Centre, stocked with newspapers, magazines, books and toys, catering to both locals and holidaymakers. Further along the road, Dampier's Grocers continued its long-standing tradition of village service. This 1985 photograph reveals the long facade of what was once Charmouth Manor House. Originally constructed in the 16th century, it served as the grange house for the Cistercian monks of Ford Abbey. Its land stretched back to meet the ancient stone wall that once enclosed the monastic holdings. In 1648, the village was purchased by William Elliston, a prominent figure who made the manor house his residence. His son, Anthony, who lived to the age of 79, continued the family's legacy in Charmouth, and both are commemorated with striking marble memorials in St Andrew's Church, just opposite. Though the building was later divided into three residences, its Tudor fireplaces, timber trusses, and oak doors still whisper of its noble past. Mike and Susan Hendricks are seen here outside the outside the Charmouth pottery shop, an enterprise that became a beloved part of the village's creative identity. Founded in 1967 in the old Ford, which is now the fossil shop at the top of the street, the pottery quickly gained recognition for its distinctive oatmeal glazed bowls, miniature cottages and honey pots. By 1975, Mike was producing up to 1,000 pieces annually, with a gallery and showroom where visitors could watch him work at the wheel. In 1987, the business relocated to the manor house opposite St Andrew Church, where it continued until its closure in 1993 after 26 years of artistry. This photograph of the White House, number 2 Hillside, taken in 1985, captures a moment when Hazel and Tony Fairchild were at the helm of his 8-bedroom hotel. Their adverts proudly proclaimed home cooking as their speciality, an old-fashioned courtesy and service, a warm invitation that resonated with guests seeking comfort and charm. The building itself, a Grade 2 listed villa, dated back to 1827. After many successful years welcoming visitors, the hotel eventually closed and now serves as a private family residence. Aubrey House, then known as the Cottage, offered both a tea room and hotel experience in the heart of Charmouth. Nestled within its attractive grounds, the establishment promised every comfort for its residents, with bedrooms featuring hot and cold water and electric razor points, a mark of modern convenience at the time. Guests could enjoy dinner, bed and breakfast, and indulge in Dorset clotted cream tea served in the garden. A lively scene from 1999 of a brass band leading a colourful fancy dress parade as it passes Aubrey House, then still fondly remembered as the Cottage, on its way to the annual Charmouth Fair. A photograph taken in 1985 captures Perrier and Luttrell House side by side, both operating as hotels at the time. They were originally built in the early 18th century by the Reverend Edward Bragg, who along with his son served as rectors at St Andrew's Church for over 70 years. Their Georgian facades later enhanced with bow fronts in the 19th century. This 1985 photograph of the court captures its heyday as one of Charmouth's post-war hotels run by the Stapletons and offering 14 bedrooms with hot and cold water. Set amid 4 acres of attractive gardens, it was a place of quiet elegance and comfort, reflecting the village's mid-century hospitality boom. Pat Stapleton, who helped manage the hotel, later became one of the founding members of the Pavey Group, now the Charmouth Local History Society. Though the hotel has since closed, the building continues to serve the village as residential and office space. This view captures a graceful stretch of the street with Portland House standing tall at the top, followed by the Stone House and the building now known as Monk's Rest. For many years, this property was called Sycamore, later renamed Applegarth, before adopting its current name. According to local tradition, it may have originally been built by the abbot of Ford Abbey, a connection that inspired a later owner to christen it Monk's Rest. In 1962, Andrew and Christine Asquith brought a touch of continental flair to Charmouth when they opened Mediterranean at Portland House. The shop was a treasure trove of goods collected during annual tours across Europe, offering everything from clothes and furniture to rugs, pottery and jewellery. The couple's eye for eclectic finds and their vibrant displays made Mediterranean a standout feature in the village's retail landscape. A 1985 snapshot captures Suzanne's hairdressers beneath the distinctive blue canopy of Portland House. By the time Suzanne took over, the shop front had already begun to blend into the building's Georgian facade, and in later years it disappeared entirely, making exact location difficult to pinpoint. An evocative photograph of Ernest Hutchins standing in the doorway of his shoe shop, once part of Granville House, his home and workplace for half a century. Known affectionately as Tacker, Ernest inherited the business from his father in 1920 and continued repairing shoes with quiet dedication until his passing in 1970. But his contribution to Charmouth went far beyond cobbling. He served as postman, fireman and councillor, embodying the spirit of village service. The doorway to the left led to Child's hardware store. Photograph of Mifflin's captures a moment when Waterloo House's frontage was home to a charming craft and bookshop in 1985. Its shelves filled with handmade goods and literary finds. The building itself had a long and varied history. Once a blacksmith's forge, it later became the site of Child's hardware shop. After the war, Child's eventually relocated to Wisteria House and then to the Parade, settling beside Morgan's newsagents. 1959 marked the retirement of John Childs from the Charmouth Fire Brigade, a moment of quiet honour for a man who served his village with dedication. Standing left to right are Henry Turner, John Childs himself, Frank Turner, George Bestin and Ernie Hutchins, the beloved cobbler, their shoe shop adjoined Granville House. An evocative photograph of Nora and Ellis Long standing proudly in the doorway of the shop at Melville House, joined by assistant. Originally a grocer's for over a century, the premises had been run in the 1890s by Edward Vince, who also owned Charmouth stores in the village centre. A decade into their stewardship, the Longs acquired the post office. Ellis, a man of many talents, journalist, musician and artist, became postmaster, while Nora managed the shop with warmth and efficiency. Their daughter, Elise, recalled how deliveries were taken by bicycle, even for a single packet of sugar, and how the sorting office beside the shop buzzed with activity each morning as postmen prepared the village mail by hand. A spirited moment in 1953, a smartly dressed girls' band marches past Askew House, then the village surgery run by Dr. Chamberlain. The band comprising Monica Thomas, Heather Frampton, Doris Poulter, Maureen Bowditch, Anne Barton, Valerie Turner, Jean Manuel, Nan Matthews, Carol Main, and Rita Turner. George Blanchard is seen here in 1954 on horseback, proudly passing the entrance of the New Inn, a building steeped in Charmouth history. His present marked a moment in the long-standing tradition of the Cotley Hunt, which was founded in 1797 and has impressively remained under the stewardship of the Eames family for 7 generations. Photograph taken in 1985 of the New Inn captures a building with a dramatic past. Originally a thatched coaching inn, it was destroyed by fire in 1883, a blaze that gutted the roof and led to the reconstruction in brick 3 years later. The facade seen here reflects its later incarnation as the new commercial inn, which continued trading well into the 20th century before being subdivided into separate residences. This photograph captures a warm moment of camaraderie at the New Inn in 1965 with a group of regulars enjoying a pint alongside landlords Tony and Maisie Marshall. Among them is Nan Bowditch, a familiar face in village life. In 1977, Palmer's Brewery sold the premises to the Department of Environment for road widening, and the car park was eventually subsumed beneath the new road layout, and the inn itself was subdivided into private residences. The photograph captures the Boys Brigade marching proudly past the Singing Kettle Tea Room and the New Inn in 1959. This 1985 photograph of the Singing Kettle Tea Room, run by Turner and Smiles, it offered more than just light meals. Villagers could also pick up their cigarettes and newspapers, making it a cosy hub of refreshment and routine. To the right stands the New Inn, an historic pub that had served locals for generations before being subdivided into homes. This rediscovered 1948 watercolour of the former New Inn, now proudly displayed in the Pavey Room, offers a rare glimpse into Charmouth's past. Painted by a local artist, it captures the building's original hues. Details lost in time, as no colour photographs from that era have survived. It was found tucked away in the cellar of the Elms. These photographs from the 1950s captured the Cotley Hunt's vibrant present outside the New Inn, having relocated from its earlier meeting point at the Coach and Horses further down the street. Riders in formal attire, hounds poised for action, and villagers gathered to watch. An animated view looking towards the New Inn with the Singing Kettle Tea Room clearly visible on the left, a familiar stop for light meals, newspapers and cigarettes, run by Turner and Smiles. The crowd of onlookers is gathered in what was then the inn's car park, a space that has since vanished beneath the modern road layout following road widening works of the late 1970s. This joyful 1945 photograph captures a children's party at Nutcombe Terrace, Charmouth, celebrating victory in Europe Day on the 8th of May. Among the gathered villagers are Joyce Bowditch, Frank Turner, and Daisy Trott, faces familiar to many in the community. The street is alive with bunting, homemade treats, and the laughter of children marking the end of years of wartime hardship. Photograph, a Springfield house taken in 1985, adorned with the cheerful flower boxes, captures the charm of a guest house that promised modern comforts with an old world welcome. Run by the Skinners at the time, it was one of several lodgings in Charmouth. The house had earlier wartime significance too, having billeted American soldiers from the 1st Infantry Division in 1944, including Sergeant Roy S. Rhodes, who later married a local resident. Claude Muncaster's 1954 painting of Charmouth Post Office offers a rare glimpse into the village's mid-century streetscape. The post office, run by the Longs as a general store, stands prominently with its signage above the doorway. Just uphill sits Askew House, set back from the road, which served for many years as the surgery of Dr. Chamberlain. Further along, the halt is marked by a sold sign in the painting. It was once a bustling fish shop run by Cecil Gear, brother of Billy Gear, the well-known garage owner. A village procession making its way down the street in 1953, passing the wellhead on the left, the home to Reginald Pavey, the village's renowned historian who lived there from 1926 until his death in 1973. Pavey's meticulous research and deep affection for Charmouth laid the foundation for much of what we know about its past. This 1960 view captures the Claremont Hotel alongside Badger's bookshop that once offered paperbacks, hardcovers, second-hand volumes, and even a small lending library. During the war, the property was owned by H. Brocklehurst, a retired engineer whose personal touch including adding the entrance porch and christening the building Badgers. The name stuck, the shop became a quiet haven for readers until its closure in 1968. It's hard to imagine today, but the junction of Harsey Lane once hosted a bustling grocer shop known as Knapp's Stores, or Cables, as it was also called. Tucked into a modest premises, the shop offered a surprisingly wide range of goods, groceries and provisions, fresh fruit and vegetables, and even bouquets and wreaths. Its adverts, preserved in Charmouth's Visitors Guides, reveal a business that catered to both everyday needs and special occasions. This 1983 view of the Seahorse Hotel's gardens in Harsey Lane reveals a tranquil retreat once proudly advertised as quietly situated away from the main road traffic with lovely views over the sea. The hotel, dating back to 1810, stood as the sole building in the lane for over a century, its elevated position offering guests both seclusion and scenic charm. Sadly, due to subsidence, the original structure was demolished in 1991 and replaced with an apartment block. Photograph from 1985 captures a trio of notable buildings along the street. Charmouth House Hotel on the left, Mediterranean's side window peeking in from the right, and Claremont at the centre with its elegant bow front. At the time, Claremont was operating as a hotel and proudly advertised itself as the oldest established guest house in Charmouth, offering a delightful garden with views over the hills and sea. This view of Charmouth House shows it in its final years as a large hotel. Its imposing thatched structure anchored the corner of the street in Harsey Lane, formerly known as the Fountain Inn. The building dates back to the 16th century when Charmouth was under the ownership of Ford Abbey. Architectural features like the moulded beam ceiling and plank and munting wall suggest origins around 1500, aligning with the village's prosperity under Abbot Thomas Chard. In 2005, the property was sold to a developer from Weymouth and sensitively converted into 4 separate dwellings, revealing hidden historic details during renovations, including a magnificent fireplace and timber screen. This brochure page from the former Charmouth House Hotel paints a picture of refined hospitality in the heart of the village. Guests were treated to fine dining, a welcoming bar, and indulgent leisure amenities, including a heated swimming pool and sauna, luxuries that set the hotel apart in its heyday. Housed in a 16th century building once known as the Fountain Inn, the hotel blended historic charm with modern comforts, offering visitors a restful retreat just steps from the sea. A view from the car park of the court captures the Royal Oak in 1984, a pub with a name steeped in royal legend and a building rich in village history. Though its life as a public house began in 1867, the structure itself is much older, once serving as a butcher's shop and a tailor's residence occupied by John Wilde. The name Royal Oak honours Charmouth's connection to King Charles II, who is said to have stayed in the village for one night in 1651 during his dramatic escape after the Battle of Worcester. A view looking down the street in 1970 from the gardens of the Royal Oak offers a charming glimpse of 3 neighbouring guest houses, Perrier, Luttrell House and Albury House, each playing a role in Charmouth's vibrant hospitality scene. Jeff and Carol Prosser were the welcoming landlords of the Royal Oak in 1999, continuing the pub's long tradition as a social heart of Charmouth. Known for their good cheer and community spirit, they help maintain local customs, including the village's festive Christmas swim, which draws crowds to the beach each year and raises funds for the RNLI. A photograph of Littlehurst taken in 1984 captures a building with deep historical resonance. Once a convalescent home opened in 1857 by Lord Herbert, complete with 20 beds and a resident matron. According to Cecil Woodham Smith's biography of Florence Nightingale, the pioneering nurse herself attended the opening ceremony, underscoring the home's significance in Victorian healthcare reform. By the mid-1980s, Littlehurst was up for sale, soon to be repurposed as a village surgery, a role it continues to serve today. Wisteria Cottage and Langley House are seen here in 1983 during their time on the market, marking the end of a long chapter in Charmouth's commercial history. Wisteria Cottage, a 17th century building once owned by Miss Hyde, had served many roles: a branch of Lloyd's Bank, a post office run for over 40 years by William Holly and his family, and later Child's hardware shop. The elm shown here in 1985 had one of Charmouth's longest documented histories. Its deeds trace back to 1575, when Sir John Peter of Whittle, son of the influential statesman Sir William Peter, sold the property to Richard Peers, a draper from Lyme Regis. Remarkably, the lease was for a term of 2,000 years. Over the centuries, it passed through various hands, including blacksmith Samuel Burrough and Captain Gage Morris, father naturalist Francis Alpen Morris. In 1968, the Bridport Rural District Council acquired the property, later transferring it to the Charmouth Parish Council in 1996, who continue to occupy it today. This 2001 photograph marks the founding moment of the Charmouth Local History Society, formed under the chairmanship of Peter Press, whose dedication to village heritage helped shape the Society's early direction. Gathered in the image are the inaugural committee members on the left, Mrs. Watmore, Pat Hansford, Pat Stapleton, and Roger Aldworth. On his right, Jeff Prosser, Mrs. Edwards, Jill Matthews, and Keith Wiscombe. Their collective efforts laid the groundwork for what would become a vibrant hub of research, talks, and publication, including the Village Echo, which continues to share stories of Charmouth's rich past. This photograph captures members of the Cotley Hunt assembling outside the Coach and Horses Hotel in 1953, a tradition that linked Charmouth to one of the West Country's oldest sporting institutions. The Hunt, established in 1797 and still active today, often choose Charmouth as a meeting place. The 1970 snapshot places Charles and Heather Sargent at the helm of the Coach and Horses, continuing its legacy as Charmouth's historic coaching inn. The building they managed was a Victorian replacement for the original thatched inn, tragically lost to fire in 1882. That earlier structure had served as a bustling stopover during the Georgian era. The pub remained a lively social hub until its closure in 1996, after which it was thoughtfully converted into apartments, preserving its facade while transforming its function. Rube and Ron Frampton are seen here outside their butcher shop next to the Coach and Horses, a familiar sight in Charmouth from 1938 to 1961. The brothers purchased the business from Cecil Marsh, whose family had run it for years, and continued the village's long tradition of butchery on this site. The shop was part of Winton House. The Framptons lived and worked above the shop with access to their quarters via external stone steps. After selling the business to Bright in 1961, the premises became a gift shop and today serves as a private residence. 1985 marks the transformation of Charmouth's former butcher shop into a quaint gift shop named the Magpie's Nest. Over the years, the premises saw a variety of businesses pass through its doors. Today it stands as a private residence. This photograph was taken in 1958 just before Sanford House, located on the corner of Lower Sea Lane, was demolished to allow for road widening. At the time, Lower Sea Lane was notably narrow, and the proximity of Bragg stores, now the village pharmacy, to Sanford House Garden made the junction particularly tight. A coronation procession passing by Sanford House, then the residence of Colonel William Campbell Little in 1953. Just 5 years later, in 1958, the house was demolished to widen the lane, an act of practical necessity that nonetheless erased a piece of Charmouth architectural heritage. This 1958 side view of Sanford House vividly illustrates just how narrow Lower Sea Lane once was, its garden wall nearly touching the corner of Bragg's store, now the village pharmacy. The 1985 photograph captures the lively spirit of a village fair held in the grounds of Charmouth's earlier village school. In the background, the entrance to the Women's Institute, which was the village hall, and the youth club are just visible. A delightful photograph captures Henry Turner mid-performance channeling the iconic charm of Charlie Chaplin in the church hall, now known as the Community Hall. Built in 1910, the hall quickly became a focal point for village gatherings, plays and celebrations. A New Year's Eve party photograph taken in 1950 captures Edward Thompson, local tailor, a well-known village figure, performing on stage at the church hall, now the Community Hall. His shop, located on the corner of Bars Lane, was a familiar stop for generations seeking bespoke garments. The party itself likely featured music, dancing and homemade refreshments, reflecting Charmouth's post-war spirit of resilience and celebration. A candid photograph taken in 1950 captures a lively moment in Charmouth's Church Hall, where Frank Turner, Nick Frampton, Gladys Frampton and Francis Bugler are gathered for a village dance. The poster in the background announces the evening's entertainment, a performance by Roy Kay and his Hammond organ, promising a night of music and merriment. The church hall, built in 1910 and now the Community Hall, was a regular venue for such events. This photograph captures the conclusion of a fete committee meeting in Charmouth Church Hall in 1953, with members stepping out into the evening light after finalising plans for one of the village's most anticipated events. From left to right, the image features Les Holman, Eddie Austin, Grant Edwards, John York, Dennis Stokes, Basil Wybrow, Ron Frampton, Fred Penny, Barney Hansford and Bert Smith, a cross-section of local tradesmen, shopkeepers and civic-minded residents whose efforts helped shape the rhythm of village life. A photograph from the Charmouth Gardeners Flower Show captures a proud moment for the organising committee in 1983. Pictured from left to right are Bernard Smith, chairman, Jack Ashby, treasurer, Stan Durdridge, show secretary, Norman MacDonald, secretary, and Eric Poppleton, vice chairman. Their stewardship ensured the show's continued success, celebrating local horticultural talent with vibrant displays of flowers, fruit, vegetables, and home produce. Held in Community Hall and Village Hall, the event remains a highlight of Charmouth's calendar, still flourishing today. A photograph of Charmouth's Youth Club in 1961. Standing at the back are B. Jones, G. Pitfield, Miss R. Simmons, Brigadier E. Pemberton, M. Farrant, Miss E. Long, a mix of organisers and supporters who helped guide the club's activities. Seated in the front are Miss Jill Linthorne, later Matthews, and Miss N. Cable, representing the young generation engaged in village life. The Youth Club, housed near the village hall, played a vital role in post-war Charmouth, offering a space for recreation, learning and friendship. This 1953 class from Charmouth School offers a glimpse into the village's post-war generation. They included Mervyn Smith, Cedric Edwards, Shirley Bartlett, Colin Larkham and Carol Gerard. This early photograph of the tea gardens and ice cream bar at the bottom of Lower Sea Lane captures a whimsical slice of 1950s Charmouth, featured in the 1954 village guide. The site was home not only to refreshments but also to the delightfully named Noah's Ark Children's Zoo, a small menagerie described as having animals so friendly they really enjoy visitors. The zoo added a playful charm to the seaside experience, inviting families to linger a little longer among the tea tables and tin-roofed buildings of what was then affectionately known as Tin Town. A photograph of the tea gardens at the bottom of Lower Sea Lane captures a festive moment in Charmouth's history, painted in blue, red, white and blue to celebrate the Silver Jubilee of Queen Elizabeth II in 1977. The tea gardens have long offered refreshments and charm to beachgoers. Following its Jubilee makeover, the site was eventually sold and a group of homes known as Little Tea Gardens was built in its place, preserving the name while transforming its purpose. The rear view of the Little Tea Gardens captures a transitional moment in Charmouth's coastal charm. The modest building, painted in patriotic red, white and blue for the Silver Jubilee, stood at the bottom of Lower Sea Lane, offering refreshments and seaside cheer. Behind it, rising on the horizon, is the White House Hotel, a landmark dating back to 1810. The tea garden site was later redeveloped into a group of homes that still bear the name Little Tea Gardens, preserving a nostalgic link to its past. Built in 1910 for Miss Gertrude Evans, Hammondsmead House stood as a gracious residence overlooking Charmouth's marshland and foreshore. In a remarkable act of generosity, Miss Evans gifted the marsh and all its lands between it and her property to the village in 1945 with the stipulation that it remained undeveloped. No huts or buildings were ever to be erected there. This gift, combined with the parish's earlier acquisition of the foreshore in 1936, gave Charmouth near total stewardship of its beach and surrounding land, a rare distinction amongst coastal villages. After the war, Hammondsmead House was converted into a 12-bedroom hotel, welcoming guests to its tranquil setting. Eventually, the building was demolished and the site redeveloped into housing. Yet the name lives on in roads like Double Common and Hammondsmead. This photograph of Hammondsmead Hotel, taken in 1984, captures its final chapter as a seaside retreat before its demolition and redevelopment. The large field in front, once part of the hotel's grounds, continues to serve as a privately owned overflow car park. This evocative photograph shows Charmouth's local scout group camping in the village fields, a tradition that brought youthful energy and outdoor adventure to the area. Standing at the back right is a young Ron Dampier alongside his father Donald Dampier, owner of Charmouth Stores, one of the village's long-standing grocers. At the front left is John Bragg, whose family ran the other grocery shop. A photograph of Charmouth's present-day car park reveals a surprisingly bustling scene in the 1950s. A mass of cars squeezed in right up to the fence, reflecting the post-war boom in domestic travel and the village's growing popularity as a seaside destination. In 1954, severe gales battered the shoreline in the spring, causing such extensive damage to the concrete walls of the car park that full rebuild was required. Pictured here are some of the workmen involved in the reconstruction, standing outside the building that would later become the Charmouth Heritage Coast Centre. Originally constructed in the 1860s as the cement works by George Freen, the structure was repurposed decades later to house fossil displays and educational exhibits, anchoring Charmouth's role in the Jurassic Coast World Heritage Site. A photograph of Charmouth Beach in 1968 captures the height of its summer popularity. Sunbathers, families and fossil hunters crowding the shoreline in a scene of classic seaside bustle. So busy was the village during peak season that police would block access to Lower Sea Lane once the car parks filled up, often by mid-morning. The beach's popularity also underscored the need for improved infrastructure, eventually leading to the construction of the Charmouth bypass in 1990 to ease traffic congestion through the stream. This striking photograph from August 1971 captures Charmouth Beach as its absolute peak, virtually every inch covered with holidaymakers, towels, windbreaks and parasails. The scene is a vivid testament to the village's popularity during the golden age of domestic tourism, when families flocked to the coast. A view of the Charmouth Beach car park in 1984 captures the height of summer bustle, cars packed tightly across the field, with families arriving early to secure a spot near the shore. This photograph shows the Charmouth Heritage Coast Centre before its official opening in 1985, when the building still bore traces of its industrial past as George Freen's 1860 cement works. At the time, the adjacent beach cafe was already a familiar fixture, run by local fossil enthusiast Barney Hansford. This charming group photograph from the 1949 fete captures the fancy dress entrance, gathered just outside the church hall, their costumes brightening an otherwise grey day, held indoors due to poor weather. The event still radiated the village's festive spirit, with the street visible in the background. The variety of costumes, likely homemade and imaginative, reflects the post-war creativity and community pride that defined village life. This delightful 1954 scene shows Harry Grinter skittling for a pig, a popular fete attraction where villagers tested their aim for a chance at a porcupine prize. The portable skittle alley, set up just inside the gates to the playing field above the scout hut. Seated nearby, Basil Wybrow kept score, while Eddie Austin stood second from the right, capturing the spirit of friendly competition and community fun. The 1958 photograph on the right captures the vibrant spirit of Charmouth's fancy dress competition. At the centre stands Jimmy Falsey, proudly holding the dairy farm's banner. A pair of photographs from Charmouth's post-war fetes. In 1949, the event was moved indoors to the church hall, where Sue Gower and June Frampton chummed the crowd as Punch and Judy. The paving slabs beneath them mark the former site of Nissen Hut, temporary wartime shelters used by GIs in the lead up to the D-Day, later dismantled but leaving their imprint on the village landscape. In 1951, the Fates fancy dress competition crowned Monica Thomas and Julia Holman as the Bisto Kids, a playful homage to the popular Gravy brand's advertising mascots. Their win was a local triumph, with Monica and Julia just doors apart at 3 and 6 Nutcombe Terrace. This 1954 team photograph of the Charmouth Amateur Football Club captures a proud moment in the village's sporting history. Lined up in their kit, the players represent a cross-section of local families and familiar surnames. In the back row stand Charlie Stirk, Doug Stevens, Eddie Austin, Malcolm Bowditch, George Restorick, Brian Bowditch and Tom Norris, many of whom were known not just for their footballing skills but also for their roles in village life. Seated in front are Colin Bowditch, Reggie Jones, Bill Draper, Brian Wheeler and Fred Helens. This 1960 photograph of Seadown Caravan Park shows neat rows of caravans stretching across the field, each one part of a post-war boom in British seaside holidays. Located just 200 yards from the sea, Seadown offered well-equipped caravans for sale or hire, complete with modern sanitation, showers and laundry facilities. It is one of several caravan parks that emerged in Charmouth after the last war, reflecting a national trend towards mobile leisure and domestic tourism. This dramatic aerial photograph from May 1979 captures the aftermath of the River Char bursting its banks, sending floodwaters surging through Dolphin's Caravan Park in Charmouth. The scene reveals submerged caravans and waterlogged fields, a stark reminder of the chaos caused by 2.5 inches of rain falling in just 5 hours. Several holidaymakers had to be rescued from their caravans, including the Chipman family seen here, who were swept into the river and forced to climb an oak tree to escape the rising water. They waited nearly 2 hours before being rescued by Coast Guards and lifeboat crews. This remarkable moment shows a massive truck towing a gigantic transformer squeezing through the narrow confines of the Charmouth Tunnel, a feat that underscores the tunnel's limited dimension, just 66 metres long and 6 metres wide. The tunnel, originally opened in 1832 by the Bridport Turnpike Trust, served as a vital link in the old A35 until the Charmouth bypass opened in 1990, diverting traffic and rendering the tunnel obsolete. In 2004, the tunnel found new life when it was purchased and later converted into the Target Sports Centre, a shooting range that now houses rifle lanes, classrooms and an armoury. Charmouth's bypass story is one of community persistence, photographic evidence and a well-timed ministerial visit. In the late 1970s and 80s, the village endured frequent traffic chaos on the A35, especially during summer when Lower Sea Lane was closed off by police due to the overflowing car parks. The steep hills posed a hazard for heavy vehicles. Local chemist Mike Davis, always armed with a loaded camera in his pharmacy, documented these incidents. His album of road accidents was handed to Linda Chalker, then Minister of Transport, during a visit to Charmouth. This compelling visual record helped secure the long-awaited Charmouth bypass, which was completed in July 1990, bringing immense relief to villagers. Meanwhile, Chiddock was granted permission for its own bypass following a 1994 public inquiry, but the plan was rescinded in 1997, leaving the village to continue grappling with A35 traffic. This 1990 photograph shows vehicles making their first journey along the newly completed Charmouth bypass, a long-awaited relief for the village after decades of traffic congestion and road safety concerns. Construction began in January 1989, was finished in July 1990, with the project costing over £11 million. Hope you've enjoyed my selection of slides of Charmouth as it was, which has not changed too much over the years compared with many other villages. Although we have lost our numerous hotels, guest houses and many small businesses, we still have our shops, pubs, caravan sites, surgery, church and clubs. We finish on this recent delightful aerial photograph of the village surrounded by fields and the sea.